Good afternoon, guys. It's working. Bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. We're looking at Bitcoin to the US dollar. This is the 4-hour chart on Coinbase. And before I start, guys, actually want to send a big shout out to everyone that has sent tips. A couple of you guys were very generous. Want to thank you very much for those tips. Again, if you ever wanted me to personally thank you by name, please send me a DM on, if you want to keep it private, on Facebook, on Twitter. Something like that on Discord, even though I'm on there in name. I don't have anything on there other than just an account. But yeah, by all means, or just leave me a comment publicly, and I'd love to thank you personally. But again, thank you very much, man. It just lets me know I'm doing something right, and I cannot thank you enough. Much gratitude. All right, again, looking at Bitcoin to the US dollar 4-hour chart, Coinbase. Last time we spoke, Bitcoin had broken down out of this wedge, very sloppy one, but a wedge nonetheless, and it did end up finding support. Told you to look for support on this ascending support line here. It found support on this ascending support line for about 24 hours, almost a full day. We found support at this area, and then we did end up breaking down. And this is why, guys, I tell you to wait for a decisive break below. You got all the warning in the world that you wanted on this, guys. We came back down, was snaking around this for about 24 hours, which in and of itself, anytime you see something, whether it's huddling right below resistance for an extended period of time or right on top of support for an extended period of time without any major bounce, that's typically, more often than not, I'd say, I think it's about 75%, something like that, that it will break. Either if you're huddled below resistance, it will break above resistance, or if you're huddling on top of support for any extended period of time without a major hit up, it'll break below support. This obviously was that, guys, but even so, you got, if we look in here, you got, I told you what, a decisive break below. A decisive break being a 4-hour open and close. You literally got that on the candle prior to this breakdown. So you had more than enough warning that the price was going to break down below this, guys, and of course, when it did violently. We ended up breaking down, not just down to our 10,400, which if you remember, I told you last time that I did not think 10,400 was going to hold in this second pass. I was not going to take that. I told you that we were very likely at least coming to 10,000 to fill that CME gap. Remember, I told you 10,000 would likely be the first area of support, again, for at least a bounce, because again, we had those CME gap there, right there at 10,000. Let me go ahead and just pop that up for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about. There it is. We do have that CME gap, guys, and we can see if we just blow it up here, we've got a CME gap at 10,070, and then down here at 8,500 that eventually will get filled. Doesn't mean it has to happen on this pass, but eventually I believe it will get filled. Does it have to get filled? Nope, but eventually probability says it will. Nonetheless, we have come down here, haven't completely filled this gap, but it is pretty damn close, at least enough for a nice little bounce. Now, do I think we're going to continue to the upside, and does this gap have to get filled before we continue up? Not necessarily. No, it does not have to get filled before we continue up. That being said, my bias now is bearish in the short term. In the long term, nothing has changed. Long term, my bias remains bullish. Short term, I do think there's a good chance we come back down and test 9,400. I think that for numerous reasons, that we come down here and we go from our swing low to our swing high. This is from our last 21% correction to our swing higher of 13,800. We can see, as we've talked, what did I miss? 13,800 to our swing low of, there it is. Okay, that makes more sense. All right, so we can see that we came down on the first pass and hit perfectly on the 50. We discussed this. We talked about this numerous times. And then I told you guys, if we did break down below that 50, the next major area, the next major fib level was going to be the golden ratio right there at that 618 fib level, which literally almost to the dollar is sitting right above that $9,400 area, which of course we know visually is a nice visual support and has been a support for a decent amount of time. So for these reasons, I do think there's a good chance we come back down and test at least 9,400. I would expect a nice little bounce off that zone. As I told you yesterday, 10,000 would be a nice zone to scalp. If you did take that scalp trade, you should be in about, you had an opportunity to have almost a $500 profit there. Don't know if you took it or not, but if you did, congratulations. Don't get greedy, especially if you're trading on leverage. Take your profits, be happy, and get out. Even if we continue to the upside, that is a nice, successful trade. Don't get greedy, especially in a downtrade, man. Don't tempt fate. That's how you end up in a place you don't want to be. Yes, hindsight's always 20/20. If it continues up, you're going to wish that you had held. But if it continues down, you're going to thank God you sold. And either way, if you're in profit, you sell in profit. That is a good trade. So please be disciplined, guys. Not financial advice. You do what you want to do. You guys are big boys and girls. All right, coming back out here to the daily, though, as I said, the next major fib level is going to be that 618 right there at 9,400. Cannot forget that closing the gaps, closing both those gaps would bring us down to 8,500. Is that in the cards? Yes. Is it probable? I don't know. I think more 9,400 is a lot more probable than 8,500 at this point. We'll have to wait and see how price reacts at 9,400 before I do make that call. Checking our daily indicators, looking at the RSI. RSI still, it still actually this looks like a nice healthy correction. It's not until we do break down below about 46.5 on the RSI that I'm going to start to get concerned. 46.5, as you can see, once we broke up in February, once we started our bull run back in February, which I believe this is a bull run, but nonetheless, let's call it the uptrend. For those of you that believe this is just all a bearish retracement, but we'll have to wait and see if it is. But for I'm not in that camp. I do believe the bull run has begun. Nonetheless, we started that uptrend back in early February, and since then, this 46.5 has been a very, very good support on the RSI all throughout up until now. Now, if we end up dropping down below this, I'm going to start to get a little bit concerned. Now, is that going to mean the bull run is over and that the bears were right? This was just all a bear market rally? No, not at all. I'll just get a little bit concerned that we're going to come down much lower. By much lower, I mean that $8,500 area. Possibly down here about to maybe 8,250-ish, somewhere thereabouts. I'd be surprised if that did break. But again, let's wait and see kind of how this ends up playing out. We also have a fresh cross of the signal line and MACD line on the daily MACD. Histogram crossing into bearish territory. So again, this was all of this was signaling potential more bearish downside, and of course we are seeing that follow through today. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't discuss the clear weekly candle close that we had yesterday, and this happened late in the day, guys. This was your first signal that we were very likely going to come back down and take out that prior low, that prior local low, I should say. And of course, we have done that now, dropping down to about 10,000, a little below that, 9,950. But this was a nasty, nasty weekly wick, guys. No question about it. This was just brutal. And of course, this would indicate the potential that price continues down here. Now, this is Bitcoin. We do have, remember, looking at these CME gaps, guys, let me go back to these CME gaps. Looking at these CME gaps, let me go back to the 4-hour. There's no question that these act as support, guys. Remember, CME gaps just means that's potentially a nice area of either, depending on what we're looking at, either a supply zone, which would be an area of resistance, or a demand zone, which would be an area of support. And all that means is a demand zone just means there are potentially many, many buy orders sitting down here. And that's what these gaps represent. Very likely a lot of buy orders that went unfilled. So let's wait and see if, in fact, we do have enough buy orders to continue to, even if price does come back down and completely closes this gap, which we really only have about another $100 to close that gap. If that does happen, guys, let's wait and see if there's enough momentum to drive price right back up. Again, we had this nice bounce. If you took that scalp trade, congratulations. Absolutely congratulations, guys. You did a great job. But it doesn't necessarily mean, until we do take out, I would say, let me go back to the chart. I would say until we do take out this prior area of consolidation pretty decisively, so I would say a 4-hour open and close above about $11,100. Until that does happen, guys, again, my bias is going to be down. Now, could we retrace all the way up? Yeah, we certainly could. We could come up and retrace, as high as $10,800, $10,900, and that was an area of support, and it could start turning into resistance, which would be extremely bearish if it did. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, my bias is going to be at least coming back down and closing that gap. So maybe there's a little bit of a difference in price between CME's chart and this and the spot charts. So we'd have to come back down a little bit lower, probably come back down maybe wicking below this 9,950 zone. But again, maybe even coming down to this $9,400 zone. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But this is where most of my buy orders sit, 9,400. Will they get filled? We'll have to wait and see. But that's where most of them sit as of right now. All right, checking our moving averages, exponential moving averages, and our Bollinger Bands. Obviously, we're finding some support in the bottom Bollinger Bands there. Wick through it, acting as decent support now. Let's wait and see if that does hold. Doesn't look likely. But looking at our moving averages, exponential moving averages, we've got the 21 exponential that has, the 8-day exponential, the 8 period exponential on the 4-hour chart now crossing below the 21. We've got the 8 exponential crossing below the 55, and it looks like the 21 wants to cross below the 55. That's a bearish setup, at least in the short term, guys. So that does not bode well for the short term. Doesn't mean this thing can't turn around. Just means as of right now, especially if we get this 21 period EMA crossing below the 55 on the 4-hour chart, that would very likely signal some more continuation to the downside. Now let's look at the daily. Daily, we're finding support right on top of the 21-day EMA. We did break below it here by a wick, pushed it right back up, again acting as support. If we get that daily candle closing below the 21-day EMA, it's going to really get my attention. If we get a daily candle both opening and closing tomorrow below the 21-day EMA, we could be in for a rough ride here. And again, by rough ride, I mean, maybe come down to that 8,500, potentially as low as 8,250. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But yeah, would not be a good sign if we get a daily open and close below the 21-day EMA. Now, if we just get a close, again, I can accept that. But if we get an open and close, again, that's where I start to get a little bit more concerned. Looking at the weekly, again, we discussed this extremely ugly weekly. That being said, we are well above the 8-day EMA. We have plenty of light between the 821 and 55 week EMA, not day EMA, I mean week EMA. So that is a bullish sign, and that does suggest even if we do come down here fairly deep, even if we came down and test 7,000, the fact that we have a lot of light between the 8-week EMA, the 21-week EMA, and the 55-week EMA, the more light you see, typically the more support you're going to get. Now, it doesn't mean you can't dive deep into that support, but typically think of it kind of like a trampoline. Like you can push down deep into that trampoline, but typically the further you push, the more it's going to spring right back up if and when it does hit bottom. Where that bottom is, depends on the weight of the individual, to continue with my analogy there. But when it does hit bottom, the push back to the upside is usually very strong. So again, this just kind of gives you more cushion for that push back to the upside, the more weight there is. Now, that certainly doesn't always play out, but that's generally, especially in a trend like this, that's generally the idea. All right, checking longs and shorts. I had a bunch of questions on this, guys. I don't want to go too deep into it. Basically, what this was all one person liquidating short positions inside of 1 minute, all one person. And the way that they could do that without affecting price, because you remember, about 70% of shorts got liquidated, which typically you think if shorts get liquidated, what do they have to do? They have to buy, and if you're buying, that would affect price, especially when you're talking about something like this, like 20,000 Bitcoin or something, or whatever this happened, or whatever this was. I think it was somewhere around 20,000 Bitcoin. Yeah, that would typically, if you're buying that should affect price, it's somewhat, but we got no effect on price, and the reason that is because if you look back here, I did a whole video on this back in May, on May the 16th, I believe it was. Actually, I think it was the day after that. But I did a whole video when we had something similar happen back on May the 16th, and when it didn't affect price. And the way that happens is on Bitfinex and in the cryptoverse, if you were trading in a traditional market, this would be it would be illegal to close these things. They call it claiming. You can actually claim your position off the books without affecting price on Bitfinex. You cannot do that in traditional markets. You can do that in crypto because they're so unregulated. And I didn't know that until this happened, and I had to do a little bit of research back here in May. I didn't know that was even possible. And apparently it is. And this really gives crypto a bad name, guys. I hate to say it, but this is the kind of thing that gives crypto a bad name. All this trading off books, call this insider trading. Who knows if they, who knows what's going on here? But and it's just, it doesn't make any sense to try to speculate. But nonetheless, this is a closing of the position, technically called a claiming of a position without it affecting price. In other words, it being done off book. And I don't want to get into much more speculation than that, guys, but that is basically what happened there. Okay, I've had a couple people ask me for my longer-term Bitcoin predictions, way out there, and I typically don't do this because I don't put a lot of weight in longer-term predictions, guys. I just don't. But that being said, I've drawn this trend line here, and I've shared this trend line with you many times in the past. We're currently looking at the monthly chart. This is on log scale, and this is that trend line I've pointed out that basically has been acting as support ever since August of 2012. And of course, we broke that when we broke through 6,000 back in November of 2018. Then it potentially acted as a decent area of temporary resistance, and then we broke up above this very briefly. So the point in all of this is not to say this is acting as resistance or support right now. Let's hope it acts as support. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But nonetheless, the point is, and even if I was able to go prior to 2011 here, where this chart starts, remember Bitcoin's been trading back since 2009, it would show you that the entire time Bitcoin has been trading for the last 10 years, it has snaked back around this trend line. Sometimes coming above, sometimes coming below, but always coming back to this trend line. So I would say this is as good of an indication as any for predicting future price movement. Now, again, I don't like doing this in timelines, but if we are going to follow this to its logical conclusion, yes, we could say if we come out here to if we come out here to the end of 2020, it would look like we'd be at somewhere around a $47,000 to $50,000 Bitcoin. Now remember, this could be well above this line and then come back down to it. So could we be above that? Absolutely. Could we be below that? Absolutely. But again, it eventually finds its way back to the center of this line if history is any guide. So yeah, that would put us somewhere at the end of 2021. That would put us somewhere around. Let's see, the end of 2021, so that would put us into six figures, a $120,000 Bitcoin, if this thing is accurate. And again, this is pure speculation. I don't put, this is not technical analysis. This is just pure speculation, guys. This is just kind of fun to do, but don't put, don't put a whole lot of weight into this. If you really want to get, if you really want to start having fun, you pull out your fib extension, you go from the last swing low to swing high. You call this, okay, what is this a wave 1, this is a wave 2? If that's a wave 3, then you're going to look for a 618 extension, and that would bring us up to about $35,000. So you'd say the next major target, once we clear the prior high, would be about $35,000 based on that fib extension. Now again, this is just pure speculation, guys. Don't put a whole lot of weight in that. But for those of you that are asking for my longer term price predictions, I'd say this is as good as any, and that would kind of be where I would settle. Does $100,000 Bitcoin sound out of this world in a couple of years? I don't think so. I truly don't. You have to figure, what if we have hyperinflation? What if fiat does collapse? A dollar is not going to be actually worth, value-wise, not what you think it's worth today. If we get anything like hyperinflation, which I'm not saying this, guys, I don't want to spread any panic, but let's say we get some major inflation coming across and the dollar just becomes worth much less than what it is now. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities to see a $40, $50, $60, $100 gallon of milk. If you think that's crazy, look at Venezuela right now. So yeah, if we have a $100 gallon of milk, what's that going to make Bitcoin worth? We could have $1 million Bitcoin, but the value of it would not be nearly what you think of $1 million is today, if that makes any sense. All right, so how am I playing Bitcoin here? Again, my bias is a breakdown here to about 9,400. I do have some buy orders down at 9,400. I will plan on scalping that zone more than likely. But is that going to hold? We'll have to wait and see. I'm going to have to wait and see what kind of reaction I get off of 9,400, and I will reevaluate at that time. If that does break down, guys, I think we're going to quickly find ourselves down to at least about 8,800, if not this $8,500 zone. We'll have to wait and see, but I do think the first stop would be about 8,800, 8,900 before that did end up breaking down. And again, we'll have to wait and see kind of how that plays out, but I do think 9,400 will get a decent reaction. To the upside, guys, if we do end up bouncing here, we'd have to really climb up above, maybe 10,900 would certainly get my attention, but I'd like to see a close really above 11,000 before I'll start to think maybe this thing is rallying. Now, if we close above 11,500, then yeah, then I'll be fairly comfortable saying that we're very likely going to come back up and at least test 12,000, 12,500, at least test this prior high here. And again, I'll have to reevaluate if and when we get there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap Bitcoin there. Very quickly, going to try to go through your comments. Travis says your talking speed is perfect. I don't have to watch you in 2 times fast like other channels. Thanks, Travis. I'll keep doing that. Derek says, thanks for working Optical Art. Brought me here a while back. Keep up the great work. Thank you, and thank you to Optical Art, man. He's a great guy. John from Down Under. He says, how are you? I'm learning a lot from your videos, my friend. I appreciate the time and effort in making these videos. I'm becoming a better trader. Thank you for telling me that, John. That makes me feel good. It really does. I mean, it makes me feel so good to know that you're becoming a better trader and these are helping you. It truly, truly does. That's why we do this. All right, Payment 21 LLC says, good to see no-nonsense YouTube traders like you. Unbiased information is hard to find on social media. Also, the integrity that you show in your market analysis is rare quality, which is much appreciated here. Thank you. What would like to ask an expert? Litecoin acts as a BTC frontrunner oftentimes. Why is this, and when does it usually occur? Would be great to see you including Litecoin, ETH, and so forth on a regular basis, and reaction between Bitcoin and altcoins can be followed better. Okay, fair enough. I may try including that a little bit more. Let's quickly look at it. Now, as far as why Litecoin leads the charge in the past, I'm not going to give any speculation as to why it has in the past. As far as why it is now, I do think now we have the Litecoin halving coming up, and I think that's why we're seeing Litecoin kind of outperform a lot of the other altcoins, and why it has outperformed a lot of the other altcoins here in 2019. As of right now, it does look like it wants to come back down and test about 110. I would expect it to have a decent bounce off 110, maybe back up to 120 and trade that range. 110 does break down. I'd expect to support at this ascending support line here. I would expect to bounce at about $100 here as well. And again, I'd very likely scalp that $100 zone. If $100 breaks down, though, guys, again, it'll be a quick drop to this ascending support line. If that breaks down, we're looking at about $90, $91, somewhere thereabouts. To the upside here, I would say we'd need to take out about 125. If we take out 125, then I think it'll want to continue back up and test about 140 thereabouts. All right, you also wanted to ask me about Ethereum. Ethereum is very much like Bitcoin. Ethereum is actually very interesting. The chart is very much like Bitcoin, and it's been behaving very much like Bitcoin and not so much like an altcoin, which I think bodes well for Ethereum. I think that signals strength in Ethereum, and I think that means that I think very likely Ethereum does have a decent future. We'll have to wait and see kind of how that ends up playing out there. As of right now, I do think it wants to come back down and test at least about 270, 273, somewhere thereabouts. This support line here and this ascending support line, we're finding some confluence there. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see a bounce off of about 270-ish, maybe 273, 270, somewhere thereabouts. If that breaks down, though, it'll be a very quick drop down to about 250, and I'd definitely be a buyer here at 250. To the upside, if we do take out about 295 decisively, if we get a 4-hour open and close above 295, I think it wants to come back up and test about 305, somewhere thereabouts. All right, Suraj, if I'm saying your name right, Suraj, thank you for stopping by. He says, thank you very much for the chart updates. As always, great TA. We need more subscribers. I've been telling Optical Art community to subscribe to you, as you've been the best TA out there among the YouTubers. Thank you very much, Sergey. I really, really, really do appreciate that. And again, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name right. Please don't take any disrespect. I don't mean to. That's not certainly not my intention. All right, JL Wolf says, just because you're paranoid regarding two separate everything doesn't mean it isn't true. Thanks for another great video. Yeah, you're right. I guess you're talking about my last video when I told you I had two separate everything computer, two separate, actually I've got 3 separate IP addresses. I am paranoid, man. I really am. But you're right. Just because you think they're out there doesn't mean they're not. All right, Mang T Bo, if I'm saying your name right, I apologize if I'm not, says, thanks for the analysis. You can plant a baby in me anytime you want. Oh man, I don't even know how to react to that. I know I sent a comment to it, but hey, yeah, I don't even know how to react to that. Thank you. I should say thank you. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. All right, Erno says thank you. Thank you, Erno. 12th root. I know you really like EOS for a hold. EOS, BTC, very low. Thoughts on that? All right, EOS. Yeah, most of the altcoins are terrible to BTC. EOS is no exception at this point. EOS, I think, is a very good long-term hold in my opinion. Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but yes, I'm both an investor and a trader. I've got 2 separate portfolios. One in my long-term hold portfolio, which I do not touch, and the other one is my trading portfolio. I've got no EOS in my trading portfolio. I'm not trading it right now, and I very likely will not trade it unless we get some more defined pattern here, or until we do break up above about 70,000 Satoshi. When one of those two things happen, I'll be more interested in trading EOS. That said, I do hold a decent number in my long-term hold portfolio, and I'm not selling it. Yes, it's doing terrible against Bitcoin. Absolutely, most of the altcoins are, and I think that's going to be pretty par for the course. I would say that Bitcoin is going to dominate this bull run. That being said, doesn't mean we're not going to get some spikes in altcoin where they outperform Bitcoin, but I think as a whole, Bitcoin is going to do much, much better. This is not 2017, guys. I can't say that enough. I think Bitcoin is going to do much better than everybody expects. As of right now, does look like, let's see, does look like EOS wants to come up and test about 56,600 Satoshi, somewhere thereabouts. I have to reevaluate at that point. If we do break below about 52,800 Satoshi, I do think it'll be a quick drop back down to about 49,800 Satoshi. But overall, I do think EOS is a great hold. Again, though, not financial advice. Skinner says, thanks, Working. Do you see the shorts move? How is that possible? We discussed that, Skinner. Yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Aloha Boya says, excellent TA, impartial, measured. Speech speed was just right. I tend to run YouTube on 1.5 mostly to optimize time. I'm very bullish on BTC in the long run. We surely have seen plenty of action on its ascent to 100K. Yeah, you're exactly right, man. And thank you. I will keep the speed as it is. My speech as it is. JC says you nailed yesterday's call. Thanks, JC. AALS says thanks, Working. Thank you. Borgesklagi. Sorry, again, I don't mean any disrespect. You say, thanks, good to see you posting on Crypto Compare. They're a feisty crowd over there. Yes, they are. Do you ever do long-term targets, or do you stick to more immediate? Again, mostly immediate, not so much long-term, but I did do long-term this time, and so there you go. Nikolai says, thank you. Can you please look at BTC domination and talk about it if you have any idea? Thank you for your time working. You're welcome. Yeah, let's quickly look at BTC domination chart, dominance chart. Yeah, it looks like it's dropping about 63.3 right now. Looks like it wants to drop back down to about, probably back down to at least 63. We may find some support at 63. 63 breaks down. I do think it's going to be a very quick drop to approximately 60, 60, 61-ish, somewhere thereabouts, and I have to reevaluate. That does mean that altcoins may have some potential to for some money to flood into altcoins. Altcoins, a lot of them do look like they may be bottoming out. That's a big asterisk there. May be bottoming out. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, typically as the dominance chart drops, that means there's some opportunity for altcoins. So that's kind of how you read that chart. But yeah, as of right now, I would say if it's going to continue down to about 63, if 63 breaks down, guys, yeah, I do think it wants to come down to about 61-ish, somewhere thereabouts, which again may give you some potential for some movement into some altcoins. All right, Ballsy says thank you, Ballsy. God, name's cracking me up. Carter, it's not a wedge, not even a slopey wedge. What? It's not a wedge. Oh, are you referring to my what? Are you referring to this? Let's go back here. Not even a sloppy wedge. Yes, you're referring to this more than likely. That would be my guess. I would have to disagree with you if this is what you're talking about. It's a very sloppy wedge, but that is literally the definition of a wedge. Definition of a wedge is a trend line that creates a series of lower highs and higher lows. We have a trend line. We have a series of lower highs, higher lows. Now you can argue about what type of wedge that is. But to say that is not that is clearly a wedge, and we have a perfect breakout of that wedge. I don't even know how to answer that. I guess some people just like to, I don't know, man. Hey, Carter, wish you all the best, buddy. All right, Carl Garbu says, great video. How about Seller? I don't know anything about Seller, but I did see you ask that before, so let me just quickly look at it. Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very new coin. It's very difficult to, with a coin that has no history like this, and I know nothing about it fundamentally, it's very difficult to analyze a coin like that. And, you know, with a lack of history, the analysis becomes a lot less accurate. But I would say we have a strong rejection here. We're sitting right on top of the 21-day EMA. Let's see if we can get a bounce off that, guys. Doesn't look great. It looks, my bias would be if this does end up breaking down, it'll be a very quick drop down to about 0.0146 cents, somewhere thereabouts. 0.0146 cents would be my bias. To the upside, we've got to take out about let's see, if we can take out about 0.0176 cents, I think it'll be a very quick rise to about 0.0194 cents, and I have to reevaluate there at that point. But yeah, I don't know anything about this fundamentally, so I apologize. I don't know. That's really all I can tell you. All right, Mr. says it's going to 6.3K by the end of July. That's the midterm target. I would agree. If we do take out 13.8, $13,800, I would say the next target is about 16.3, 16.2, 16.3, depending on the exchange you're looking at. But yeah, I would agree that that is a target. Is it going to happen by the end of July? Yeah, I don't like to put a timeline on things. It may, it very well could. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I just don't like to put a timeline on things. But you're right, that is the next target when we take out that $13,800 high. John says, looks gnarly. Yep. Valaticus says, feels to me like this market is heading for the 21-day EMA or 21 EMA and lower. Why? Because the CME gap fills at 10,005, 10K, 89, 85. Additionally, structurally for long-term gains, we need to get out of this parabolic structure. Do you think? Yes, I do. Obviously, we did drop below the 21-day EMA. So yeah, you were right on that. Good call. CME gaps do need to get filled eventually. Doesn't mean they have to right away, but yeah, you're right. That it would be very healthy if they did fill those gaps and then continue to the upside, and Bitcoin just didn't continue to go parabolic. So I would agree with that. Some consolidation, some filling of these CME gaps would be extremely healthy for Bitcoin. I would agree with that. Todd says thank you, Todd. 880 says what happened to BTC shorts? We discussed that. 880. So hopefully that answers your question. 12 Fruit says looking at BTC historically back in 2009, it shows the current bull run as happening very early at the crypto. Yeah, I see what you're getting at here. Yeah, basically saying the bull run's happening early. Therefore, is it not a bull run? Are we just in fact in a bear market rally? I don't think so, and I think because, as you point out here, because we are getting so much more interest, as just look at volume. I mean, volume, we're sitting at about 28.9, but if we look at the historical volume here, we're jumping up and hitting volume above 40. What did we do? 45 billion just the other day. I mean, that is just insane, comparatively insane amount of volume. Truly. So yes, the fact, anytime you're getting a flood of volume like that, literally double from what it was at the peak of the last bull run, that is why, that's why that the things are happening much quicker. That's why a bear market rally, or not a bear market, typically the bear market in the past lasted about 1.5 years, where this bear market lasted about 1 year, assuming that it's over. And so yeah, it was shortened by about 6 months. That would make perfect sense, considering that we're literally at double the volume that we were, in my opinion. Again, I could be proven wrong, and if we do drop below 6,500, I will be proven wrong, very likely. But I don't think so. All right, Tofu91 says, not sure why on earth the 4-hour MACD is as significant. Don't see the MACD as significant. When it's sloping down, steep price is obviously going to crash, because the 4-hour MACD is a reactionary indicator, just like many indicators. So it only shows you what happened in the past. It doesn't necessarily show you what's going to happen in the future. So just because the 4-hour MACD is sloping down does not mean price is going to continue to slope down. In fact, I think I gave you an example of many. There are countless examples of when it was sloping down and Bitcoin just took off parabolically. I think the last time was on June the 19th, as I pointed out there. So yeah, just remember that's the 4-hour MACD is the higher time frames I put a little bit more weight on. Not so much on the 4-hour MACD, except for bearish and bullish divergence. It is good for picking out bearish and bullish divergence. Other than that, not so much. All right, Scott Lee says, I'm pretty butthurt. LOL. I put a sell order at 10,800 so I can keep some of my gains in the market. But it just so happens it hit that exact price and bounced up. I'm not a good scalping. Well, I would disagree. I mean, obviously, if you as long as you didn't buy back in, you're loving it now. I mean, it dropped back down to $10,000, and just because you get out and protect your profit, even if it would have continued up, that was not necessarily a bad call. Anytime you're in profit and you decide to take some of that profit off the table, even if it kicks up, it doesn't mean you lost money. It just means you protected the money that you gained. And if more people would do that, they'd be a lot more successful in trading. So I would say nice job, Scott. All right. But that being said, if you wanted to wait for that confirmation, as I told you, you did have that confirmation here on that 4-hour open and close, and that would have given you the opportunity to get out anyway, and you likely would have, and you'd be in the same place that you are. So don't beat yourself up. Let's see. I can't even pronounce that. I don't even know. That's not even English. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things there. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, I would appreciate an upvote if you have enjoyed this content. Till next time, guys, please trade safe. Take care of yourselves. This is Working. Signing out.